So here I've gone ahead and I've traced the outline of my fish. So if I compare the two together and I go square by square, you can see that I've got the main outline of the fish. So I've come in and I've done the head, the fins. I just kind of sprayed some lines to kind of give me some direction. I call them directional lines to help me. But now I need to go in and actually erase the grid so that I can start adding in the shading, okay? So this is why we don't get too detailed at first, because like all these lines that I've put in here, I'm kind of gonna have to erase out because I wanna get rid of this grid. This is why I went ahead and drew. When you're erasing the grid, it doesn't matter what direction you hold this, but this is one of the reasons why I went ahead and drew the grid for you. If you push too hard when you make your grid, then when you go to erase it, it stays, okay? We don't want the grid lines to stay. We want them to disappear into the background like they never were there in the first place. So I'm gonna just do this big section here first, okay? So you can kind of see where I've erased out. But then I can come back in and I kind of, so this has a lot of lines from where the scales are. So I'm gonna go ahead and keep my directional lines. So basically on this, everywhere that there's a fin, there's kind of a fold. And they all come back in here to the tail. So I'm gonna go ahead and put those back in. And on this part, like you see up here, so this would be part of a spike and then it would roll. So it's like lots of folds on his fin because they have a lot of surface area, so they curve. So I'm just gonna kind of put these in lightly. Now when I did do them, I tried to follow the main highlights so that I was actually going in the correct direction. If I end up having one, I have to erase this line up here. If I end up having one that's not 100% perfect, in the end, no one is gonna know it but you. So sometimes when we're drawing, we have to be inventive. We kind of have to, you know, sometimes we actually, as an artist, you'll fake lines so that it looks more real than what's really there. It just depends. So I'm putting these in. I'm coming down. And right now I'm still working on like just the skeletal part of the fish. So when I say skeletal, I mean the line part. And not everything has to come back to the main point. Some of it can fold over. But what I'm trying to do is make sure that, like, for the most part, the area of the grid has disappeared. And actually, I'm gonna completely erase out these lines and just go with what's here. So I'm adding in, these are basically the bone structure of the tail, okay? So if this is a betta fish and they have a really bony tail, so they have lots of areas on the fin. It might not, like, I don't know enough about fish biology. It's probably something more like cartilage rather than a bone, but I really don't know. So I'm just gonna call it bone. And I am turning this upside down. Now, if I really wanted to, I could come in here and like super specifically, grid by grid, put in every single line, but I don't want to do that. So I'm not. I'm just putting them in. And I'm going real light at first. Excuse me, I'm going real light at first because I want to make sure that I don't put in something that I can't erase later. Okay, so now I have this beautiful fanning tail. You can't really see my lines. There's a few spots I've got to fix. But I will go through here now section by section and make sure that my grid is completely erased. So I'm just going to continue to do that now. I come in and erase out. If you have a regular pencil eraser, like on the end of a pencil, you know, something that would be on the end of something like this, you probably have a little bit more control than you do with this. Mechanical pencil erasers are great for this because you can be real specific. Now, one thing you have to be careful of is popping the paper, which I just did. So if you hold it, you know, like, don't erase back and forth. Try to erase in one solid line, or, you know, maybe like hold the paper if you do it, because you want to make sure you don't end up wrinkling the paper. And I can just kind of shake this off. I'm using my 2H pencil when I'm doing this because it doesn't smear. If I was using like my HB or something like that, it would smear when I do this. And because we were tracing the outline, I didn't feel the need for that one. And as you can see, sometimes I erase in short bursts, sometimes I erase in bigger ones. There's no wrong or right way to get rid of the grid lines. It's just if you have a smaller eraser, you can get in here and then you don't erase some of your other lines by accident. So you want to try to erase as much of the lines as you can. I kind of have a line there. So now I go back in. I'm going to put these back in. So I have these. Keep following out. Now, the one thing I'll say about the fish is that there's actually a fin in front of it. So this right here, I'm going to add a little bit of a highlight because the tail is actually behind. I'm just kind of shading that part so you can see. So this is actually in front of the tail. So I just want to make note of that when I'm working on this, because we are going to go ahead and shade these. You have the choice to shade it in color, or you have the choice to shade it in value. If you shade it in value, you're going to follow along with what you see here. So you're going to end up with a final drawing that looks like just like this. If you decide to try it in color, then you will need to look up this type of betta fish and find one that's in color that you like, because it can't look flat. It still needs to look like it has value. So on this body, okay, it would still need to be like, if this was blue, it would be like a dark blue to a light blue, and it would still look like it's curving. All right, so I don't suggest you do that unless you're really, really trying to challenge yourself and you have a really good understanding. So again, I'm just kind of, you know, putting in my lines. Again, this I think it's called a dorsal fin. I don't know if that's right. It's probably not right. But this top fin is what's on top. Well, this top fin is on top, but it's actually behind the tail if I look at the picture. So I'm just going to come in and clean that up. So again, I end up with a really nice kind of line drawing excuse me, at this point of my fish. So I'm going to keep putting these lines in now that I've erased it. I'm going to go through and touch up any areas where it looks like, you know, maybe I had more of a sketchy quality. And again, like, the difference between this and the bear is that this has a lot more areas that you can fudge. That's why I'm showing you this one, because if the bear is a kind of a step up challenge, its value is in line, and so the different line qualities. This has a lot of lines in the spine, but it's more shaded in value. So just remember as you're selecting which one you want to do, like the shape of that, so I'm gonna change it. Even though I drew it proportionately, I like this a little bit better. And you can do things like that if you need to.